This episode of Disney with the Ducks discusses the Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney+. Spoilers are abundant in this episode, so if you haven't watched the series, definitely go check it out. Then come back and give our episode a listen. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Welcome, everybody. Live from Duck Studios, we have another episode of Disney with the Ducks podcast. And with us tonight, we've got Kevin, Master Obi-3 Kenobinder, Gene, and we've got our special guest, Johnny J from the DMSW podcast. So tonight we've got a show coming for you that we think is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be discussing our thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi, the limited run series that just aired on Disney+. So before we get into that, though, Johnny, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about your show and, what brought you in to meet with us today.
Awesome. Well, thanks, first of all, guys, for having me on the show. My podcast backstory started during the pandemic when kind of everybody's life changed and everybody started working from home. And I mean, I'm from Massachusetts, so big sports fan up here. And like that was my number one hobby, was watching sports, going to games, hanging out at the bar with friends, watching the big games. So when the pandemic hit, that all changed for me. That all went out the window. And once sports came back, it just wasn't the same for me. Having no fans at the games, it just not being able to go to the bar with your buddies and watch the game. It wasn't the same experience for me. And the longer it went on, like the less and less interest I had in kind of keeping up with things. So I had finally some time to check out something new and try to find a new hobby to get into. So I started getting into podcasting and listening to podcasts, because without watching sports as much, I wasn't listening to sports radio, wasn't even in the car as much anymore because we weren't going to work. So listening to podcasts from my phone while I was working, and eventually like the Disney passion crossed over into the podcast thing. And I was like, oh, I wonder if there's any podcasts out there on Disney topics, and was like blown away to find out, like I found like this whole world that I didn't even know existed was out there. And then just started listening to all kinds of different shows and was loving it. And just the longer and longer I listened, the more and more I was like, I'm missing out here. Like I got to get in on this party and get involved somehow. So I started doing the research and watching YouTube videos and reaching out to current podcasters, asking for advice and tips. And eventually, after months of planning and changing the name and this and that, eventually I jumped in and launched the DMSW podcast.
All right. And the DMSW stand for Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because that's kind of the other reason I went with that name and that topic was there are lots of podcasts that I liked that were like just a Disney focus. And every time a new Marvel movie would come out, I'm like, man, I want to hear these Disney hosts that I love hearing talk about Disney. I want to hear them talk about Marvel, but they just would never really get into it. And then same thing with the other categories. No one was bringing up Star Wars, but you could find a good Marvel podcast. You could find a good Star Wars podcast, but there wasn't a ton of crossover that I was finding out there. So I was like, all right, maybe that's my spot to slide in. I can come up with a show where I might not grab every Disney fan that's out there, but there's definitely a large group of Disney fans out there that also like Marvel and Star Wars as well. So,
Yep. Yeah. And it's a good show. I've really enjoyed it. And I think that's what led me to reach out to you, was I listened to your first episode and I was like, this guy reminds me exactly of myself.
We're from different multiverses.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
similar.
Hey, wait, by the way, our beloved Lonnie Gaines, commented, actually. He said, I'm just here to see Johnny and John on the same screen. Now I know they're different people unless they're using some Harry Potter wizardry. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just needed to say that it is thought that maybe you were the same person, but maybe not. Maybe not.
I mean, I think when I was listening to your podcast, I'm like, wow, we got married the same year. We both have a ton of kids. We both have similar families and from a couple different aspects. And then I think you were in marching band too, right? Like in high school.
Yeah, did marching band. I heard your last episode. You talked about doing jazz band. I was in jazz band too. So
yeah,
we're literally the same person, just from different multiverses.
Yeah, I was like, holy moly. So we started talking on Facebook Messenger, and so I think this kind of came out of that. And then you've been reaching out to some of the other guys in the group too. So we're both new Disney podcasts and thought it was a good opportunity for us to get together and try to spread the word about each of our different groups. So thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say was thanks for having me on. This is big for me. This is the first time I've done a podcast interview on camera. So this is a whole new experience for me. So nice. I took a shower for you guys. I shaved. I did the haircut. I went all in. Had to clean up nice for you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, I cut my hair yesterday too because I knew I was going to be on with these guys, and you got to look good when you're dealing with Gene and Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So going around just to the group on the call or on the podcast tonight, we just wanted to talk about something non-Disney to get us started. So we're on a podcast. Johnny, you mentioned being in the car. That's one of the things that entertains people a lot. What are you guys listening to that's not related to Disney? What's your favorite podcast out there right now? Johnny, go ahead.
Sure, I'll go. All right. So my favorite non-Disney podcast is called #Dork. And it's one of the guys here from New England who's actually on sports radio, but he started a podcast with one of his buddies, and they don't really talk about Disney, but they're big into Marvel. So it's what it #Dork. It's all the dorky stuff. It's comic books, Marvel movies, MCU, Star Wars, all that type of content. So none of the Disney park stuff or Disney movies, but definitely big, heavy on the Marvel content, which is what I love listening to them.
So still Disney adjacent.
You're sort of.
You're taking the anti-rules approach though already. I like it. So Gene, what about you? What are you listening to now?
So I don't listen to, you probably know this. I listen to no Disney podcasts. I never have. Probably, I listen to ours occasionally.
Just to give us the download.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the numbers.
Right.
I listen to true crime podcasts. That's what I started listening to with podcasts. I've always been fascinated by criminal profiling. I've read, all the books that John Douglas, who basically invented. If you've seen the show Mindhunters on Netflix, it's based on his experience. And so my very favorite podcast is called Real Crime Profile, and it's about it's by and about profiling, and it's very interesting. But I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, and you could. Carly on the way yesterday asked me about some different podcasts, but my favorite one right now is called Murder Squad. It's two guys, a retired cop and a journalist, and they actually were both instrumental in finding the Golden State Killer. And they talk about unsolved cases. They kind of crowdsource solving crime, and so that's kind of cool too. So that's
awesome.
It makes it does when I'm running at night. It really increases my pace. It really does. I'm not joking.
I don't think I could even listen to one of those in my own house though. So, but that's what that's what you got to do when you've got a teenage daughter too, right? You got to listen to some of these true crime podcasts. And
oh man, I know all the stuff that she needs to watch out for, and it does make you a little paranoid though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
And my wife's a former cop, so that there's that too. So
you've already got some paranoia there then?
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt.
All right, and Kevin, what about you?
So I just looked through my list of podcasts just a second ago, and it's full of Disney. There's only a couple that are not Disney, kind of Disney adjacent quite a bit, but I do like some running podcasts every once in a while. There's an Adventure Jogger. That's a pretty good one. Just talking about running, but after a while it kind of gets hard to listen to just because it's about just running. So I've listened to just about every Star Wars podcast out there. I try to listen to those. I learn a lot from those. So mostly Disney, but every once in a while I'll do something else.
Okay.
How about you?
So I like a few different podcasts a lot. I love Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. He's one of my favorite humans. I loved him on Parenthood. He's the whole reason we named our kid Crosby, because I loved his character on that show. Mm-hmm. So with him having his podcast, I've just found it super interesting the way he interviews people and what they talk about. It feels very real, which is I like. So it's nice getting to see and the breadth of people he brings in. He brings in experts from different areas and entertainers, all kind of stuff. So it's really cool. And then Smartless with Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes. Love those guys too because they're hilarious. So that's been a really good one. And then just like one work related one I listened to is Adam Grant has one called, and of course now I'm going to forget it. But Adam Grant's got his podcast out there, and he's like an organizational psychologist. And it's kind of just about how to better work within your organizations. It's for leaders, it's for lower level folks in the organization. So that's really cool too. Plus he's a Michigan guy. So I like that about him. But so I definitely took advantage of this and just threw out more than one, but that's how it goes, right? And then Kevin, I get what you're saying though about the running podcasts. I love them too, like Marathon Training Academy. I listen to a lot, but after a while, it gets to be a bit much. And I'm like, all right, I gotta move my mind onto something else. But there's so much good information there that I keep coming back to it, of course. And the folks are entertaining, so that always helps. All right, so that's good. We got a lot of good things out there that we're listening to outside of Disney. Although I don't know, Kevin and Johnny, you guys seem like still pretty tied into the Disney world. But
it's hard to break free.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
And there's so much out there. But today.
That's all day.
Yeah, it's crazy. But so today what we wanted to do was we wanted to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. So all 6 episodes are now released on Disney Plus. One thing I want to warn our listeners, if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want spoilers, you probably want to turn us off. Go watch 6 hours of TV and then come back and finish and see if you agree with us or not on our thoughts on the show. But this is going to be full of spoilers with Johnny, Kevin, and Gene. We've got a lot of Star Wars love on this show, so I'm sure there'll be some really good discussion coming out of it. So basically, I just want to open it up for discussion. I don't really have any questions prepared. I guess, Kevin, let's get your thoughts first on, just overall thoughts on the series.
Okay,
Kevin.
So, Obi-Wan, it's no secret. Obi-Wan's one of my favorite characters. I've always loved Obi-Wan since I was a kid. I'm kind of in my own area, I guess, if you want to call it that, as far as liking the prequels. I'm one of the rare ones that actually likes the prequels. So I think that they're starting to get a little more love now, but Obi-Wan has always been, like I said, my favorite. The show was great. I loved it. For me, I guess if I had to rank it among the different Disney Plus shows, I would put it at the top or close to the top. Mandalorian being really close to that. So, that's kind of my overall, I guess, general. But how about you?
So for me, I think I loved it, but I'm a casual Star Wars fan. I've seen all the movies. I haven't watched all the spinoff series and everything, but I enjoy the franchise, right? And I loved it. I thought it was great. I liked the whole storyline. I really liked having Leia in there, but my problem with Leia, and maybe we'll talk more about it later, is I thought of that girl as like a 6 or 7-year-old girl, not a 10-year-old girl, just from a casting standpoint. But so that kind of bugged me throughout the series, to be honest. Because I'm like,
she actually was not even 10 whenever they recorded. She was younger, so you're right.
She was like 9 though. She wasn't that far off.
Yeah, not that far off, but yeah.
It wasn't like they had a 2-year-old out there, I guess, but still. Right. So no, I loved it overall. And then, so Gene, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so you guys know we've talked about this before, that I've always considered myself a big fan, maybe a super fan. Then I met Kevin, and so now I'm pretty much a casual fan compared to Kevin. But I love Star Wars. It's been a part of my life since I was 6 years old. And Obi-Wan Kenobi was not my favorite character until the prequels, and then the Clone Wars just solidified that. But he is without a doubt my favorite character. And so I was super excited for this series. Overall, I loved it. I was very satisfied. There were things about it that, I was disappointed at first because Obi-Wan Kenobi was, he had his redemption arc, obviously, and he was beaten down. He was frustrated. He was lonely. He was, I don't know all the adjectives to use, but he wasn't the Obi-Wan that we knew. And that was disappointing, but I understand. I mean, only disappointing from the standpoint of, I like the character so much. I wanted to see him in all of his glory. And we ended up back to see the Obi-Wan that he was. And so it was very, very satisfying to see that. I love Leia. I thought she really captured the essence of the character of Leia Organa, that Carrie Fisher portrayed. I mean, just the snarkiness and the attitude and the toughness and all those things. She really captured that. I really love the way that whenever that she named her son Ben, and nobody really ever got that. Now you kind of understand it a little bit. There's so many things I liked about it. Reva, I didn't like her at first. Then I did. So many things about it. At first, it built. It's not perfect, but I'm like Kevin. I don't hate the prequels. 1 is okay. 2 and 3. 2 is better than okay, and 3 is one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I love Revenge of the Sith, and I love the whole. We've talked about this. I love the whole arc of Anakin. I love the Brotherhood, and we saw that again in this series. It was very, very satisfying to me. I loved it.
Well, and something that you said, it just made me realize, I think, why I enjoyed the prequels more over time is because of the Clone Wars. I think the way it fleshed out Obi-Wan as a character, it made the more episodes of that I watched, the more that I enjoyed the prequels. So I think that's where he became my favorite character because of that series, even though it was, an animated series. I think that's where it really solidified it for me. And then something else you said about, Leia as a kid, something I really enjoyed on this is that you can really see how she embodies, Carrie Fisher, but also Padme. I think you can see a little bit of her in her as well.
And a lot of Anakin too, though.
And Anakin, whenever she picks up the droid and starts working on him, I mean, it's just like she's the natural with that, and already exhibiting, signs of the Force and things like that. So something that I'd always thought with watching the sequel trilogy is that they named Ben Solo. I thought that may have come from the relationship between Han and Obi-Wan. But after this, it's pretty clear that, to me anyway, that Ben was named more from Leia because of her, kind of seeing him as more of a father figure, father adjacent, protector kind of thing. The relationship that she had from this, it's not what I expected at all. I mean, I was the biggest disappointment for me was that they didn't spend as much time with Luke. I mean, you only hear him say like 2 words the whole show.
Yeah.
But even though that was kind of a downside, I really enjoyed them fleshing out Leia.
So I mean, overall, same thing. I thought it was great. So Johnny, we want to get your take on this too, and that's why we brought you on to discuss this. So a bit of a warning, you're walking into a little bit of an ambush here because we all had the opportunity to listen to your show, breaking down the episode.
I didn't. I wanted to be fresh. I didn't. Okay. I didn't on purpose because I wanted it to be fresh. I will after this though.
So and I did, and that's what kind of made me think of the idea. As I was talking to these guys about it, I'm like, this is perfect because it's a kind of opposing views, and I don't want to give away too much about. But why don't you give us your side of the story here on what you think about it?
Well, just like furthering Lonnie's beliefs that we're the same person, it sounds like our Star Wars background is very similar too. Where I'm more the casual Star Wars fan. I've seen all the movies, but I haven't watched Clone Wars yet. I haven't gone through Rebels and watched all that. And it sounds like I've heard that from other fans too, is if you watch the animated series, it kind of fixes a lot of the things that most people didn't like about the first 3 movies. So because I haven't seen those yet, to me, the first 3 movies really aren't that great. They have elements in them that I love, but for the most part, they're like more towards the bottom of my favorites list. So I was coming into Obi-Wan hoping like, okay, this is Star Wars' chance to pull a Marvel move here where they take an old project or old characters that like maybe they didn't do it the right way, and this is their chance to like fix all those mistakes and like loop it around. So like now you're like, okay, now I love these characters. Almost like what they just did with that new Spider-Man movie. A lot of people didn't like Andrew Garfield's 2 Spider-Man movies, but now like it feels like coming out of that Spider-Man movie, he was everybody's favorite part of that movie. Was Andrew Garfield was so amazing. So I was hoping that Star Wars was gonna kind of take a page out of that book and do the same thing here and fix a lot of that. And when you heard that Hayden Christensen was going to be coming back and being in the episode. I'm like, this is perfect for him and his career, because you kind of feel bad for him. Like, I feel like it really wasn't his acting that was the problem. It was just the material just wasn't that good for me in those first 3 movies. So I think a lot of fans kind of probably rag on him probably a little harder than his career deserved. And I was hoping that this movie this show would give him a chance to kind of redeem himself. But that's kind of what I'm getting around to here, was why I was kind of like, I didn't hate the show. I was just kind of like, like just kind of neutral or almost a little bit let down by it, because I just wanted Obi-Wan and Anakin / Vader content. Like, I wanted as much of that as possible, focused on just their relationship and building their stories and filling in the gaps between the movies and where they are in this show. And I felt like they put just way too much effort or screen time into these new like side characters, and some of them they didn't even make it out of the show. Like the Tala lady that they introduced, I mean, she did a good job acting, I think, on the show, but like I was like, I mean, to me, you could have taken almost her character, Roken, and Haja, those 3 new characters, and just squish them all into one person and shorten up their individual storylines and just put more time into the Obi-Wan and the Vader stuff. Because as a casual Star Wars fan, that's what I was there for. I was there for the Obi-Wan stuff and the Vader stuff, and I wanted as much lightsaber battles as I could get in those moments of like going back in time. So like episode 5 was my favorite episode, because it starts off right out of the gate back like in somewhere around that movie 2-3 type of time frame where they were training together, and then they would show you like an element of their personality from back in the day, and then they would go to like the present day time on the show, and okay, see, this is where this part of their personality today comes from because of what you just saw back here. And then they go back in time again, give you a different kind of element, and then come back to present day and do it again. And I love that part, or that style for that episode. And when the series was over, I thought back and I was like, I wish they did that formula for every single episode. I wish every episode had moments from back in that like episode 2, episode 3 type of time frame. You could have had Ahsoka Tano have an appearance on the show with way back when she was with Anakin in the beginning. So I felt like they missed out on some opportunities to bring in like the characters that people really wanted to see, and they introduced these new ones that like we just didn't need. Like nobody was asking or begging, I think, for like new characters and new sides to the Star Wars family. You just wanted the classics.
So I went into this one thinking that I wanted just all this Obi-Wan versus Vader type of storyline, and that was it, right? I just wanted lightsaber battles, but I really loved the way they did it, and I liked having Reva come in like the third sister, because so Kevin, one of the questions I had about this was she was only in Star Wars so far in the Jedi Fallen Order game, right? Is that where she comes from?
I don't think Reva's in there.
She's not.
The third sister?
She's one of the Inquisitors, but she's not in that game.
Huh. Okay.
But other Inquisitors are, and other Inquisitors are in Rebels. And so we know, if you've seen those shows, if you played the game, I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday, and he wanted to kind of, he's more of a casual fan, but has become more of a fan. And so he always wants to talk Star Wars. And so, we were talking about our thoughts, and he said, I just feel like there was so many gaps, and there was so much missed. And I'm like, have you watched the Clone Wars? He's like, no. I said, have you watched Rebels? No. I was like, well, so he didn't understand the Inquisitors. And so I said, to really understand some of this stuff, to really get the best out of this, you really have to have that background. It's not that you don't have to have that background, but you do. Johnny, I get what you're saying, Johnny.
Yeah,
I will strongly disagree. I do feel
all right, let's go. Come on, Jim.
Yeah, right. Let's go, man. Let me tell you.
You're wrong. You are so wrong.
I completely do. I do get it. Yes. So with other shows, we've seen where you get like fatigue of characters, right? And so they couldn't have done 6 episodes of nothing but Vader and lightsaber battles. And maybe they could have, but But I feel like that might have been a little bit of character fatigue, and they needed to flesh some of these things out. As far as like I have a couple different thoughts about the flashback sequence. I loved it too. I thought it was so cool. If you read anything online, people were giving it all kind of hate because of the effects. They didn't de-age either one of them. But I mean, we're just so spoiled now where 10 years ago, you didn't de-age, or maybe a little bit more than that. You didn't de-age anybody. You just, actors that were 35 years old played 14-year-olds, you know?
I've got a theory on that.
You know, that's what we did. I'm fine with the way it's what I grew up seeing. That's what you see. It's not a big deal. But they did do the flashbacks in every single episode of Boba Fett. And so it's already been done. If they would have done that every episode, I feel like it would have been a little formulaic. But I do like the idea of it. It's not that I hate what you're saying at all. I do understand what you're saying. I did enjoy the characters. I thought that my mind is blank. The fake Jedi. I thought he was funny. Tala, I thought served a purpose to show that there were other people that were non-force sensitive that were working to get these force sensitive folks out. And I think it was showing some of the seeds of the Rebel Alliance that we'll see later on in Rebels. And so I do get what you're saying. Not, but I see why they did what they did.
Yeah, I think that I kind of agree with. I kind of understand now. Without having seen some of those extra things, it makes it really hard. So I think that the direction of the writing was more geared toward people that have seen all that content, and that I can see where they might have fallen short on that. Something that I picked up on that I think some others picked up on online was, did y'all see that every episode lines up with one of the 6 original movies? Did you kind of see that?
No.
So I've got some notes that I put together on that. So episode 1,
of course you do.
Yeah.
kind of lines up with Phantom Menace. Luke doing some pod racing moves, and Leia has a decoy just like she does in Phantom Menace. In the second episode, more like Attack of the Clones, clone trooper on the street, kind of begging for money or food. They got the underworld where Obi-Wan is going. He gets offered the death sticks in the second, Attack of the Clones. Well, in this one, his own daughter plays a character that offers him spice, which is kind of cool. Then in the third episode, Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan was burning just like Anakin was burned. He kind of flipped that role over. Episode 4 was like A New Hope, interrogation of little Leia, just like Leia was interrogated by the droid. Obi-Wan sneaking around, putting a homing beacon on her droid the same way that Darth Vader had the homing beacon put on the Falcon. Then in episode 5, lines up with Empire. Obi-Wan chooses to go to Vader and leave others like Luke. Then Vader walks into the base, very similar to the way he walks into Echo Base. And then in Return of the Jedi, on episode 6, Reva rejects the dark and redeems herself, just like Luke or like Anakin does at the end. Vader's slightly unmasked, same kind of thing. One finds peace and becomes one with the Force after being attacked by the flying objects, just like Luke. And then, the Force Ghosts at the end, the special that we've been waiting for 6 episodes to see Qui-Gon, and he shows up at the last second. So that's one of the gripes I have. I wish Qui-Gon would have been there a little more. I wish he could have convened with Yoda some. I mean, I think they left a lot of that out. That's my beef with it. Wait until the very end. But I know that they filmed this thinking it would be a one and done, but I'm really hopeful that the numbers on this show have topped every other show that they've ever done. So I think it was like 1.7 million views, something like that. Viewers like the first day. So
despite all the hate too, because there was a lot.
There always is. There always is. I mean, just like with whenever The Last Jedi came out, I think there was a lot of people that attacked that. I mean, and there's always going to be some up and down. But one of the other things that you mentioned was kind of the redemption. The original trilogy was the fall, and then the prequel trilogy was the fall of Vader and then the redemption of Vader in the in the original trilogy. Well, I think this, like you said, this was kind of like Ewan and Hayden's way to redeem themselves as actors through this show. I mean, it really gave them a chance to come back. I know that, or I've heard that they both did all of their own training with lightsabers and actually fought each other. So whenever you saw the de-aging or without the de-aging, they were physically fighting. I mean, they learned all their moves, and even Hayden didn't get hardly any face time other than the flashbacks, but he was in the suit. I mean,
right. He was in the suit though.
And he was like
the commitment to that character was great on his part.
And just the way he walked and the way he did everything, it was just really good. He embraced it. Instead of walking in with his tail between his legs, he went in chin up high and just took it on and was like, you know what, I'm going to make this mine. And he did. He is Vader now. I mean, in my mind. So
one of the things that they did with the character, which they did in Rebels as well, when Vader was basically his helmet sliced open by Ahsoka, they combined the voices of James Earl Jones and Matt Lanner, who does the voice of Anakin Skywalker. They did the same thing. The voice kind of went Anakin Vader, and then combined at some point. It was so cool, and it was just a neat thing.
But even I think Vader would talk, it's like it was James Earl Jones's voice, but you could still kind of hear Hayden in it. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I thought, an awesome scene.
Yeah, Gene, that one, and then the other one that I loved was when they were putting Vader together. You know, when the pieces were coming in. I think Johnny, you mentioned it on your show about this, like from the original one, how that was it was cool, right? But this episode, when I saw that, I'm like, oh my god, this is one of the coolest things I've seen.
And you got a piece of that in Rogue One too, right? Just a little piece, just a snippet. But this is so much better.
Blew it away. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Kevin, you had mentioned something about it was supposed to be filmed as a kind of a one limited series, right? 6 episodes, and that was it. But with the response they've got, I don't know how Disney doesn't do a second season. So what do you guys want to see out of a second season? So Kevin, I want to get to you last, actually, because I think you probably have the most in-depth overview. No, honestly, I want to save that for right now. And Johnny, will you go walk us around? Then we'll go to Gene and over to Kevin.
Deborah Chow's already called him, the director.
So it feels this season was obviously very centered around Obi-Wan and Leia. So I don't know how you can build more relationship between Obi-Wan and Luke because they really don't have much interaction. But I'd love to see whether it's a bounce back between the two of them. But I'd love to see more younger Luke material come up with season 2. And I, like Kevin kind of hinted out there, like we all were just waiting for the Qui-Gon Force Ghost to show up. So I'd love more Force Ghost showing up in season 2. And see, I'll add in too, I was hoping that we were going to get Qui-Gon in the battle or the fight scene between Obi-Wan and Anakin when he cuts his mask. Because all I could think about in that moment was like, Obi-Wan, like that was your chance. Like you needed to end it right there. Like you should have killed him right there. And to me, that was like the chance where that's when I wanted to see the Force Ghost Qui-Gon show up and like kind of center Obi-Wan and like kind of bring him back from doing something that he would regret, and that would be the reason that Obi-Wan didn't end it with Anakin or Darth Vader right there. Because you think of how scary this character is, and you can obviously see what they're building to. Like, how does Obi-Wan not stop this evil force right here? Even though they obviously have that backstory and that relationship and that closeness, but that would have been his moment to end it. And to me, you could have had Qui-Gon show up there, and it would have been just perfect. But just like I said, for this season, I wanted more of the characters that I already know, that I already like. So like you had said, Crawl, there, give me some Force Ghost Yoda, or so give me some more of those characters that Star Wars fans already know and love for season 2.
Yeah. And what about you, Gene? What do you want to see?
Yeah, I agree with you about more Qui-Gon. I think that I gotta believe that going into this, they felt like that there was a possibility of a season 2. I think that Qui-Gon may have been saved for that. I might be wrong. I read some things that said if you watch this series thinking that this was originally supposed to be a movie, and they after Han Solo didn't do as well as they wanted, they decided to focus on TV series, and they made this into a TV series. And so if you watch this thinking this was a movie that's been expanded, then it changes things a little bit, and you understand some things. I don't know what, but you understand some things. But I think that Qui-Gon was held back maybe for that. Maybe. I'd like to see – I just don't think there's going to be some interaction with Luke. I would like to see some behind the scenes, maybe stealthy protection. I don't know. Or pulled away from Tatooine because he's needed to do something else. Something else maybe with other Jedi, that are have left, the underground path, however, I don't have any other speculation apart from that. But I just want more. I want more Star Wars. I want more Kenobi. I don't care. Andor, I wasn't very excited about The Mandalorian, but then I loved it. I'm not very excited about Andor, but I'm sure I'm going to love it. Man, look, I don't care what it is. I just want more Star Wars.
Fair enough. All right, Kevin, I've been actually really excited to hear kind of your take on this, on what you think you want to see next.
Okay, so I love what they did with Leia and everything. I don't think that the season 2 would need to focus much on that. I think that as a director, they're going to have a lot of pressure to bring her back some way because of how well she was received. But I think that would, for me, it would kind of dilute it a little bit. I want to know more about the path. I want Obi-Wan to find Quinlan Vos. I want them to go on an adventure together.
Yeah. That's good.
Quinlan Vos is apparently still alive. I want him to find out what happened in the tomb with all the Jedi that are, encased in amber. I want to know, I want to see the Emperor and how he's pulling apart, Jedi, capturing them from the path, and Obi-Wan maybe rescuing some as they're being captured. Because I believe that what they're doing in that tomb area is that they're harvesting genetic material to then look for cloning and maybe making the Emperor stronger, whatever. So I'd like to know a little bit more about that. There are so many hidden messages and stuff on the walls. I've got an Arabic translator that I'll get out and after watching one episode, I'll go through and find things written on the wall. And it's like, oh man, that's a guy from that was in Legends that's no longer canon. So are they going to bring them back? I mean, there's so many stories out there, and I think the best thing about Star Wars is they're not afraid to recycle an unused idea or an idea that was originally part of canon and bringing it back in, and just kind of going full on. I think, like you said, more interaction with Qui-Gon. If I do see more about Luke, I want to see him learn how to fly. I want to see how he gets his T-16. Now he's got the toy. I want to see him, save some money up and get that and try to, see how
he womp rats.
Yeah, shoot some womp rats. Some more times I think it'd be kind of cool if he somehow runs into Cal Kestis. I mean, it's very likely that could happen. Maybe run into Chrysanthemum I'd like to see some way there, because that timeline is 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, but there's still 10 more years before A New Hope. So there's some gaps in there where they could really expand on some of that gap. I mean, I think they would be at a huge loss if they don't explore the path a whole lot more. I mean, there's so many different things they can do with that, and so many spin-offs from this series that could go into multiple other series just following around Quinlan Vos, because I think, and I don't know if it's still canon, but he actually ends up marrying Asajj Ventress.
I think it is canon. I think that's a book that was written after.
And so if that happens, okay, then they end up going to what's the name of the planet where she's from? Dathomir. So maybe they go back to Dathomir and somehow cross paths with Maul, and then Maul gets somehow brought into the show. I mean, obviously Maul doesn't know about Luke. In the Rebels episode, he finds out he's protecting Luke, and that's kind of why he draws him out. But I mean, he's relentlessly trying to find him, and so we know there's a big spice trade going on. We know that that Obi-Wan is there at the same time. We know that that Maul is running his criminal empire. kind of in the shadows. So kind of seeing how all that interacts with each other. I mean, I think they could just go on and on and on. It's just so much potential there.
And I really like what you said about pulling Darth Maul in. That's my son's favorite character. He loves him. I think we talked on the music episode even. He loves like with the hit Darth Maul's theme song.
Duel of the Fates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caleb loves that. So that's his favorite character. So I would like to see that. I mean, more just for him. But I'd like to see more of Reva too. I really thought her story arc was good. I like that she was one of the younglings there when Anakin went there. And I like that she turned into, semi good in the end, right? She at least didn't kill the young Luke, which I thought was really cool. I really liked her character in general. So I'd like to see more of her and what happens with her in the future and how she develops. But I think that's what I want to see, that, and then obviously just more of Vader and Obi-Wan, because I love both of those characters. So okay, all right. Anything else that you guys want to bring up about your thoughts on the series, or other things you'd like to see corrected in a future show? No. Okay.
I will tell you that one thing that I did enjoy seeing was more about Order 66. We saw some of it.
Yeah.
Obviously we saw it in Revenge of the Sith. Then we saw pieces of it in what cartoon? The final episode, the final season of the final episode of the Clone Wars. We saw it in The Mandalorian with Grogu. We saw his kind of look back on it. We saw it in The Bad Batch. We've seen little glimpses, and so this just adds to it. I would like to see more about that. I would like to know how Grogu escaped. I would just like to know how, more about how Kestis and just others escaped. I want to see that. I think that'd be a great story.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I think that would be something that even a casual Star Wars fan like me, I don't know who any of those people are, but I do I do think it would be an interesting story to be able to see and learn that history, I guess, and pull it into to something more easily digestible, I guess, than going and reading all the old novels and all that type of thing. Okay. Any other comments on Obi-Wan Kenobi? I guess so let's give it a rating. If you guys were going to get a rating of 0 to 10, Kevin, what are you going to give it?
9.5.
Wow. Okay. Gene, what about you?
15 out of 10 every time.
Really? Okay. Johnny, where are you falling on this?
See, now they're gonna hate me. I'm probably more like in the just kind of average. Like, it was definitely better than a lot of the movies that I didn't like, but to me it just wasn't up to the top tier type of quality. So I kind of slot it in like probably a 7.3, 7.4, something like
better
that.
than average.
And this is where
it's good. It's good. It just wasn't in that top tier for me. And my favorite Star Wars anything is Mando, and to me they are just absolutely crushing that show. Every time that guy is on scene, I am like just fully into it. I'm completely captivated by his lines, his backstory, absolutely everything. The Darksaber, it is hands down my favorite Star Wars project. So that's a Disney Plus show. So I can't put Obi-Wan anywhere close to that level for me.
I'm curious, what about Cad Bane? Are you more into the spaghetti western side? Okay,
yeah,
so you
love Cad Bane. Like that one scene is like probably one of my favorite.
That's a great scene though.
Of it is
any Star, like, oh my, it just gave me goosebumps watching that.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I kind of got I kind of understand your background, because I mean that is something that Star Wars does great when they do the western kind of feel.
Yeah,
they really bring that home, and I think Cad Bane kind of embodies that, like that awesome western, here comes the bad guy into town kind of thing. And Mando, built that other role. I think if they could explore that a little more, I mean, it doesn't end well for Cad Bane, but nobody ever dies, so you never know. He could be back.
Yeah. And for me, I think I'm going to give it a 9. I would put it just below what I think Mandalorian is, of like a 9.5, because Mandalorian is one of my favorite shows and probably my favorite Star Wars content as well, along with, I think we were talking in the chat. I mean, Rogue One is another one that I just love.
I think that the Mandalorian you don't really have to be as in the weeds as I am, and some of the other fans like digging into the backstories and all the comics and all the other stuff. I mean, sure, I think that's what made Obi-Wan so much better for me. But Mandalorian is right up there with it, and it stands alone. I mean, you don't really need to know much at all about Star Wars. I mean, there's so many people that had never seen anything Star Wars until that, and they loved it. So,
oh yeah, I have family that I have a nephew that went to see one of the prequels with me, and I joked about dressing up, and he's like, "Come really?" And when we went, he was like in college, and I remember driving up. He's like, "I hope we don't see anybody that I know here." It was like a midnight first showing, and now this guy is this is years later. This is a 38-year-old man with a wife and a couple of kids, and we were at my a family thing, and Mando came out, and his whole family, they were all excited to go and watch it, but they don't watch any Star Wars. They don't know anything about Star Wars. They don't care. It's just good TV,
Yeah. Well, I will say, add one more thing. You mentioned costumes. One thing that I was able to score today, I got a 4-day pass for Celebration. So I'm going to be.
Where is
London?
Huh? What's that?
London, right?
In London.
Overseas.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm going to try to cross the pond if everything goes well, and try to see some of the people up close. So,
all right. So Kevin, now are you bringing your family with you on this?
No.
Solo. Okay. Wow. That's amazing. So it's a 4-day Star Wars festival? Is it like D23 where they're announcing new things and stuff like that?
I've never been to a con. I've never been to a convention ever on anything. And so this year was the first year that I really watched a lot of the panels and stuff that they had available online. And I was hooked. I watched it all. I watched every minute of everything they put online, and I ate it up like, couldn't get enough. So it was just like watching something produced for me. I love picking up on every little crumb that they put out there. And so I was like, man, this would be really cool to go. I was hoping that they would have it in the States again, but they put it in London. So I was like, that's going to be kind of tough to swing, but we'll see.
That's amazing. So you got your tickets to that. When is that again? It's like next, what?
It's April 7th through the 10th. So,
and that's probably a good time weather-wise and everything else to be in London, but
yeah, but it's over Easter weekend, so that makes it a little harder.
Okay. Whoa. Okay.
But I will say that this morning, I think the VIP pass sold out in 30 seconds. I wasn't able to get that. The 4-day pass sold out in like 10 minutes. I was barely able to get that. So everything's now sold out, I think, except for just some days.
Wow. Well, that's amazing that you were able to get in, because I know you were talking about wanting to go.
Yeah.
God, that's awesome. But I can't really give you much crap for it because I left my family with my newborn child and my wife and my 4 other kids to go down to marathon weekend. So, so I went to Disney without any of my kids.
But you crossed the finish line in your first marathon. So
that's true. Right. That's true. And it was well worth it, even if I still get yelled at about it.
Oh, well.
Oh man. All right. Well, Johnny, again, thanks for joining us to talk about Obi-Wan. We are now going to move into what is, I think, our fan base's favorite segment of the show.
Gotta be.
Quacking up with the ducks. So let's see, who wants to go first? Any volunteers?
I can go first if you'd like.
Okay. Go for it.
So I'm just curious, do you guys, if you wanted popcorn, maybe a Snickers bar, maybe a hot dog, what Star Wars character do you think you'd go to for that? No idea?
No idea.
Admiral Snack Bar.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
It was a trap for sure. That's his favorite kind of music too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's terrible. All right. All right. Who else is who's going next?
I can go next.
All right.
So mine's a Star Wars one as well. And you may have heard this one before, but if Chewie's short for Chewbacca, Ben Kenobi is short for Obi-Wan Kenobi, what is Luke short for? A stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Oh. All right, Johnny, do you got a joke for us?
I'm ready to go, and this one comes with an impression. So sorry if
nice.
Nice.
I won't charge you guys any extra for the impression.
You're raising the bar
Okay.
here. This is
Right?
The first joke
Come on our show and show us up.
So, do you guys know why episodes 4, 5, and 6 came out before episodes 1, 2, and 3?
Tell us, Johnny.
Because in charge of directing, Yoda was.
Nice.
It's a good one. All right, I've got one. It's a math joke, so hopefully Kevin gets it. What do you get when you put root beer in a square glass? Beer. I really think Kevin's the only one that got it, or it's just not funny.
No,
Did
I
it? If you
The root.
if you square the root, you're back to just one, or
Beer.
Oh boy,
Oof,
okay.
man, that's rough.
So I was trying to get there. Just the math just wasn't on the tip of my,
That's a tough crowd. So I have a list of jokes.
That's a tough joke, man. You got to be really smart to get that
No,
one.
okay. So you got to understand though too. What I do for a living is I talk to engineers all day long, right?
Uh-huh.
So I like to
That
have
must
a list
kill.
of jokes.
That must kill in that room.
It does. It does. Yeah, it's amazing. So coming from that audience at work to you fellas,
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I try to give some of those jokes at work and stuff, and people are like, "I have no clue what you're saying."
I've started even doing our staff meetings where I give like a corny dad joke at the beginning to crack everyone up. Nobody ever laughs, but it gets people talking a little bit. And my boss even brought it up on my review. So she's like, I like that. I like the icebreaker. So I think people do like corny jokes more than they let on. Except for my children. They legit hate them.
But that's why we have them, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're for.
They're a captive audience. They don't have a choice.
Yeah.
That's the kid's job too. You can never admit that your parents are funny. It's not.
Right.
You're not allowed to laugh at your parents.
Not at all.
That's true. That's true. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight on our conversation with Johnny J from the DMSW podcast. And Johnny, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the socials, on your podcast, that type of thing.
Sure. Yeah. The best place to reach out first is on Instagram at the DMSW podcast. You can shoot me an email, the DMSW podcast at gmail.com. And you can find me in all your major podcasting apps under same thing, the DMSW podcast, Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, DMSW.
Awesome. And thanks again, Johnny, for joining us. And as far as the Ducks
thanks for
go,
having me.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Thanks for being on.
As for the Ducks, you can find us over on Facebook. Come join the flock in our Disney with the Ducks Facebook group. You can follow our page on Instagram at Disney with the Ducks, and we're also on Twitter at Disney with the D1. So we're on all those. We're still working on this Tinder page. We talk about it every week. We just haven't got it going yet. We haven't got the right angle for the selfie to put on there yet. So we're still working through the kinks there. But Kevin and Gene, thank you guys for bringing all your Star Wars knowledge. I'm always amazed when I talk to you guys. Just the depth of knowledge you have is amazing, and such a fun way to discuss the show. Again, hopefully you guys caught the spoiler warning at the beginning, because basically everything that happens.
You're going to be very mad.
Yep. So we don't want you yelling at us. But if you do want to yell at us, send all the complaints to Jeff Positano and Lonnie G.
Lonnie. Yeah.
And then if you can, please go out and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on anywhere that you're going to listen to our podcast. And we strive for 5 stars. But if you don't want to give us 5 stars, let us know why, right? What can we do better? We're new at this podcasting thing. I think we've been having a lot of fun engaging with the community, and we have a good time putting these shows out. So we hope you guys listen next time. And for all of my co-hosts and for our special guest joining us, Johnny J, I just want to say Kwaharini.
Sith Lords are our speciality.
May the force be with you.
Quack, quack.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Yes, we finally got rid of Jeff and Carly. Just kidding. I want to keep Carly around.
Why is it so easy to get rid of us, but you can't get rid of them?
Can't. Oh man.
Boys' night out. Let's go, guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we have only the fellas on tonight.
Right.
Okay. Kenobi. I didn't do my vocal exercises this morning, so bear with me here,
Unique
fellas.
New York. Unique New York.
Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather.
My daughter stuck her head in my office a minute ago, or a few minutes ago, and when I was talking and said, "Do you want Chick-fil-A?" And
yes, that's what
I said yes.
Do you even have to ask that
Of course I
question?
do.
That's an automatic yes,
That's
right?
a given right there.
I'm not going to no Buc-ee's. I'm not going out of my way to go to a gas station.
It's the biggest the biggest gas station I've ever been to, and the cleanest bathrooms. There are no cleaner public restrooms in the world.
That's the only gas station where you have a shopping cart.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
You can get a deer stand there.
I mean, like burn pits, crawfish cookers. Probably not where you live, but I mean, they've got everything.
yeah. I mean, I'm a city person. I don't kill my food. I just go and get it from the butcher. I don't need a deer stand.
Everybody needs a deer stand.
What am I gonna do with it? I don't even have a tree big enough to put it in.